Hello and welcome to the launch edition of InfoCheck, a new bi-weekly program brought to you by West Africa Democracy Radio in partnership with PenplusBytes. I'm your host, Francis Boniface. This series will unpack insights from Disinformation Index, a pioneering report by PenplusBytes that tracks how disinformation spreads and shapes democracy across Ghana, Côte d'Ivoire, Mali, and Burkina Faso. Over the next 9 episodes, we'll dive into how disinformation threatens governance, electoral integrity, and citizens' trust, and what can be done to strengthen resilience. And who better to kick off the first edition than Jerry Sam, Executive Director of PenplusBytes, to discuss the theme, the disinformation crisis in West Africa. Welcome to InfoCheck.
Thank you very much, Francis. Thank you for having me.
Now, let's start with the big picture. Disinformation Index report identifies disinformation as one of the most serious threats to democracy stability in West Africa. Now, we would like to know what motivated PenplusBytes to develop this index and how does it aim to help policymakers, media, and citizens responding to this growing challenge?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. So PenplusBytes, we have been working around information integrity for the past 14 years. Through our work, we realized that disinformation is actually impacting democracy, undermining, democracy itself. Is being used as a weapon, to undermine citizens' trust in public institutions, in government policy. So basically, it's affecting most of the work that organizations such as ours doing in governance, our work around media and information literacy, and all of that. And then we realize also that disinformation is not static. It keeps on changing. The strategies that the actors use keep on changing. Sometimes we even realize that it is economic because people engage in disinformation or spread disinformation and get paid for it. So we wanted to understand, the trends, the patterns, how come it's taking a lot more hold in the Sahelian countries where democracy is struggling, and then how can we learn and then also impact coastal countries from Senegal all the way to Nigeria? What can we learn from the impacts or the adverse impacts so that we build resilience on it? So that's how come we decided to do this disinformation index, to understand the trends, the strategies, and what the actors are doing, and develop concrete strategies to counter it. So we find that, disinformation is a systematic threat that undermines democratic governance, especially around elections. It's weakening trust in institutions, and even being used by authoritarian regimes, as we found in Mali and then Burkina Faso, to legitimize why they are still staying in power. Some of the narratives that we came across was that democracy is not working, so the military regimes are the right ones to use. And our findings also reveal that democracies such as the one we have in Ghana and Ivory Coast, is facing a lot of election-related disinformation, especially when it comes to the processes around elections, results counting, and all of this undermine in a democracy. So the index is basically to help us develop strategies and tactics that we can deploy to counter disinformation and its adverse impacts on our communities. Thank you.
Now, you spoke of trends, you spoke of patterns, and also the difference between the two sets of countries, if we may call them that. We have the coastal countries, Côte d'Ivoire, we have Ghana, we have the Sahelian countries, we have Mali, Burkina Faso. Can you take us through the methodologies used? Was it the same all through the 4 countries, considering their differences geographically, politically, and otherwise?
So thank you very much. So as you mentioned in the beginning of your intro, this is basically a comparative study of, the authoritarian regimes and democratic regimes, Sahelian and coastal. And our primary objective was to assess, the impact of disinformation on public trust in the media ecosystem, both authoritarian and democratic regimes, electoral integrity, especially in democratic regimes where we do have periodic elections, and then also core democratic institutions, which, do still exist across the countries. And then, we use a composite, on the methodology, we use a composite disinformation index. The methodology was basically to see how, reliable, and, the comparable results across those countries will give us. So the first level is that we leveraged on a platform that PenplusBytes built ourselves, which we call the Disinformation Detection Platform. It is an AI-enabled digital tool that is designed to monitor and analyze disinformation using keywords in real time. So this is basically to ensure that accurate reporting is done. It also help us to collect data in real time, conversations around social media platforms. So these narratives then informed our conceptual framework and guided the design of the survey that we developed. The survey questionnaire. So, for example, some of the dominant narratives that we picked up were military juntas or Russia. Africa is saviors. And we find that conversation on TikTok. You find it on X, formerly Twitter, on Facebook, where we have a new crop of Pan-Africanists leveraging these narratives. What Captain Touare, for instance, is doing in Burkina Faso to say that he's basically changed Burkina Faso, is making it a new haven for development. And so other countries need to adopt military rule to have that level of development. Russia is a savior, and then the West is not here to help us, but to basically steal our resources. Elections are routinely rigged in the democratic areas. So we fashioned our questions around this, sort of narratives. And then, we developed three key pillars. As I mentioned, the media ecosystem, the electoral integrity, and core democratic institutions.
It's interesting to hear you say that. Are we seeing a West-East divide here, where we have Russia, like you mentioned, on one side, then we have the West on one side? And when we throw in things like AI into the mix, how complicated does this make the landscape in terms of disinformation in West Africa?
So it's become more of an information war, and also a war of winning hearts and minds. So in the Sahel region, you find that Russia, broadcasting institutions or entities pushing more disinformation around winning the hearts and minds of the ordinary citizens that they are our saviors. They are our partners because when they are in our resources mining and stuff like that, they share with us. China, for instance, will say that, they are developing our infrastructure, whereas the West is not doing that. They're basically siphoning it, back to the West. So there are a lot of anti-French disinformation, for instance, in the Sahelian regions, anti-West disinformation in those regions. Whereas in the coastal regions, it's more targeted towards democracy. That democracy is not working, as which I've emphasized earlier on. The AI question that you thrown in the mix is making it very, very difficult for our work, for instance, because the AI platforms are becoming easily accessible. They are tools that can be easily automated, whereas in the past people will have to do Photoshop. You have to have a skill to do it. Now you just throw in words, throw in links, and the AI will generate disinformation content for you and I easily, for ordinary citizens to push it. You can automate the platforms to consistently use bots to spread this information. So it's very, very difficult to counter.
In a society or in a situation where we have a state-sponsored disinformation campaign sponsored by foreign actors, what are the recommendations from your study? Could you give us a summary of the urgent steps needed from government, civil society, media, tech, all the concerned parties, and even citizens to counter this?
So our conversation flows. I'll start from government. With the democracy-led governments, or governments that are practicing democracies, it is a bit, not easy, but, we have structures and frameworks already there. Most of these countries do have, even in authoritarian countries, before they became authoritarian or dictators, they already had existing laws. And we believe that, we need to start going back to the basics. We need to leverage the existing laws and let it bite. The sanctions within these laws are not being used. And we need to make sure that the sanctions within those laws are being applied. On the media side, we are all in the media platforms. We know and understand that media houses have challenges with funding and all of that. But what we crave and what we propose or recommend is that at least let's have a desk for fact-checking information that comes from the field before we push it up. And this can be supported by updated editorial standards, so that we reduce the spread of manipulated content from our platform or what news comes on our platform. With civil society, we are doing quite a lot of work, and I think we need to start implementing or integrating MIL into our programming. But the key thing that we keep on missing is that most of the things that we do from civil society angle with our work around fact checking is that we're still doing it in French and then in English, ignoring local languages. So we are, basically, leaving out our constituents in the rural area. From the donor end, we will pray that donors will support, cross-border investigative journalism, provide grants around, media and information literacy, and then also support, things that ECOWAS is doing so that, ECOWAS can, influence individual governments around disinformation and see how disinformation is really impacting on our development. On big tech platforms, unfortunately for us, the big tech platforms have almost abandoned West Africa. I'm saying this because, during the Ghana elections, we're not seeing them on the ground to basically call out disinformation or even take off disinformation content on their platforms. And we believe that, they should come back on board, recruit moderators who understand our local, cultural nuances and context, and then identify this information and take them off our platforms. So, that's the recommendations that, we have on this, various actors in the space.
Jerry Sam, Executive Director of PenplusBytes, thank you for coming on InfoCheck.
Thank you so much for having me, and I hope we have more conversations like this in future. Thank you.
From today's conversation, we see that disinformation doesn't just distort facts, it reshapes trust, democracy, and governance. As the conversations show, tackling it requires evidence, partnerships, and coordinated action across all sectors. This has been the first episode of InfoCheck, brought to you by West Africa Democracy Radio in partnership with PenplusBytes. Join us next time as we continue to unpack the data, trends, and tools for combating false narratives across the region. I'm Francis Boniface. Thank you for listening. And remember, stay informed, stay critical,